Hi, if you're new here and don't know me, I'm Ian and I want to welcome you to the Selah Time to Pause podcast from Plexus Salvation Army, an online church in the UK. On Monday, we considered the words of Jesus when he asked his future disciples, Andrew and John, what they wanted. Today, as we cross-reference that passage, we'll think about another time that Jesus asked that same question, but this time of Bartimaeus, a blind man.
Then they reached Jericho, and as Jesus and his disciples left town, a large crowd followed him. A blind beggar named Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, was sitting beside the road. When Bartimaeus heard that Jesus of Nazareth was nearby, he began to shout, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." "Be quiet," many of the people yelled at him, but he only shouted louder, "Son of David, have mercy on me." When Jesus heard him, he stopped and said, "Tell him to come here." So they called the blind man. "Cheer up," they said. "Come on, he's calling you." Bartimaeus threw aside his coat, jumped up, and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked. "My rabbi," the blind man said, "I want to see." And Jesus said to him, "Go, for your faith has healed you." Instantly, the man could see, and he followed Jesus down the road.
I will stop and breathe in your presence. Just breathe. Just breathe.
It's only quite recently that I came to see this story in a new light, as I read an article from the Theology Today journal, written in 2020 by Erin Rafferty, a research fellow at Princeton Theological Seminary. Her reading of this healing story through the lens of inclusion for those with disabilities was both simple and eye-opening, and I want to share the gist of her thoughts with you today, in the hope that this will bless and challenge you as much as it did me. She suggests that this story of the healing of blind Bartimaeus, like many others which deal with people with disabilities, has been frequently misinterpreted, the worst of which have been those occasions when some have suggested that blindness or any other disability is either an analogy for, or even worse, a punishment for sin. But she points out that the only obstacle standing in the way of Jesus' ministry to Bartimaeus were the able-bodied disciples and the crowds around Jesus. At the start of this story, Bartimaeus is sitting on the roadside, blind and begging. When he hears that Jesus is leaving, he cries out loudly, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." Now, we don't know who exactly responded, which people it was, but we are told that many in the crowd ordered him to be quiet. It was only when Jesus stopped to call Bartimaeus to him that the people who were previously silencing Bartimaeus' disruptive presence take a more pleasant tone as they turn to him and say, "Take heart, get up, he is calling you." It begins to seem, therefore, that if we focus only on the healing of Bartimaeus, who is blind by Jesus, then we'll miss the additional account of Jesus' healing of the attitudes of the crowd. The shift in the mentality of the able-bodied crowd from silencing Bartimaeus to perceiving both his energy and perhaps even his ministry is truly profound, and it's hard to know exactly how this happened. But we do know that although the others shushed him, Jesus stood still and called Bartimaeus to him. Those seemingly trivial actions served to nurture the hearts of the crowd, transforming their relationship to Bartimaeus. Whereas at the outset of the passage, the many can only see Bartimaeus as a disruption to Jesus' ministry. After Jesus stands still and calls him, they seem to reverse their narrow interpretation of who Jesus may be allowed to associate with. Both Bartimaeus' faith and agency and Jesus' pastoral leadership participate in the transformation of the crowd's attitude toward Bartimaeus. But if we then interpret this passage merely as a narrative about the social healing of the crowd, then we run the risk of making Bartimaeus merely instrumental to able-bodied transformation, just a pawn to be used to help others be healed. And so we need to also look at the encounter between Jesus and Bartimaeus, and this is where our cross-reference comes in. When Jesus encounters Bartimaeus, he does not presume that Bartimaeus wishes to be able to see. Rather, Jesus asks him directly what it is that he wants him to do for him. And when Bartimaeus does ask to see again, Jesus replies, "Go, your faith has made you well." And Bartimaeus immediately regains his sight and follows Jesus. It can be quite tempting for most of us, especially if we're able-bodied, to focus on the regaining of Bartimaeus' sight as a miraculous act performed by Jesus. But the way Mark tells the story, with its rather drawn-out dialogue, actually orients our attention to the heart of Jesus' question, Bartimaeus' request, and Jesus' proclamation. Jesus is the one who draws the reader's attention to Bartimaeus as a person in his own right, beyond the mere circumstance of his blindness, by asking him what he wants. In Jesus' ministry with Bartimaeus, we find not just a welcoming, but a dignifying of people with disabilities. Simply because Bartimaeus' disability is visible, Jesus doesn't presume he knows what Bartimaeus wants or needs, or even that those wants or needs are connected to what Jesus thinks he knows about his disability. When Jesus asks Bartimaeus, "What do you want me to do for you?" there's a subtle recognition that Bartimaeus can and has done many things to pursue Jesus. He's cried out in repentance to Jesus. He's thrown off his cloak. He's come to him. He's sought him out. But Jesus does not presume that simply because Bartimaeus has approached him and cried out for mercy, that he desires physical healing. Between Jesus and Bartimaeus, a dialogue breaks out, and one that is conducted on Bartimaeus' terms. And in recognizing with this question, Jesus does not welcome but dignifying Bartimaeus' humanity by entering into dialogue with him. It's also important to note that it's Jesus who is responding to Bartimaeus, rather than Jesus who's leading this interaction. Despite the miracle of healing, it's no stretch to say that Bartimaeus is the protagonist in this story, and Jesus plays but a minor role. Bartimaeus is the one who initiates. Bartimaeus is the one who is the central part of this story. And in Jesus' pastoral response to Bartimaeus' complexity and humanity, we find a helpful lesson for ourselves. Although seeking to welcome and make accommodations certainly matter, dignifying dialogue makes the greater difference in this account. Erin Rafferty points out that Jesus does not assume that Bartimaeus wishes to see, but asks him what he wants. And so too in all of our actions with everyone that we encounter day to day today, we too must take an attitude of humility in those dealings with other people, and learn not to just make blind assumptions that others will always want the same things as us. We need to learn to ask that question: what is it that you want? So over the next few days, why not set yourself the challenge of asking that question of someone else? Take time to grow your relationship with a friend or a colleague by really listening to them and by asking them what they want. Don't just look around you and wonder what you can do to help other people, but instead look around to see who the other people are and then ask them what you can do to help.
I see the state of the world and it grieves me. I hear the cries of the broken from the rich and the poor. I smell the fear of disease all around me. I feel responsible now that I've seen, because we all were born to live for more, live more than this. So I won't love like you love, love like you love, wanna love others the way that you love me. I wanna love like you love, love like you love, wanna love others the way that you love me, the way that you love me. I've held the children unseen, and they move me. I wonder what I can do to improve 1,000 lives. I feel the absence of love, and it scares me. I feel responsible now that I've seen, because we all were born to live for more than this, so much more than this. So I want love like you love, love like you love. I wanna love others the way that you love me. Yeah, I want love like you love, love like you love others the way that you love me, the way that you love. I was that lost soul that you rescued. I was the orphan you adopted and brought into your heart. And I was acquainted with the hopelessness of living in the streets. That was me. Now I'm gonna love like you love, love like you love. Help me love others the way that you love me. Oh God, gonna forgive like you forgave and rescue